いらっしゃいましたわ。
ようこそ、ドクター・リーガル。
Seriously, how can you not tell that this man is evil incarnate? Blues and Rockman pair up to defeat ongoing waves of viruses coming to assault Scilab. All of them focus on getting to the captured dimensional converter to destroy it before Scilab can get something incriminating out of it, which does nothing but frustrate their operators, as they've been at this for several days in a row with no luck. Something Neto can't help but grumble about in class. All pretense about hiding his NetSaver job at this point being pretty much dropped.
科学省が保管してるなら当然ファイアウォールでガードされてるはずだよ。言われてみりゃそうだな。全然気づかなかった。気づきなさいよそれぐらい。
By the way, Mayuri Sekijima episode, meaning Neto's back to being presented as brain dead. This is one of the worst examples of this too, as it's showing the rest of the cast as stupid as well. As the entire point of the viruses they fight is they're either too strong to be stopped by Scilab's firewall, or the sheer number of them is just too much for the firewall to handle, both of which has already been established in previous content, alongside the point we've made previously that, well, the data viruses get in literally everything from experimental tech on down that would have already been detected. Directed attacks, as the Dark Lords and Nebula are doing, are not going to be deterred. So bashing Neto about not thinking about this isn't applicable here in the first place, because the firewall doesn't matter! Anyways, Neto's called in to work with Enzon on another assignment, them acting as the bodyguards for a scientist that's been called in to consult an analysis of the converter, Dr. Regal from Kingland, who is totally not evil. Nope, no siree Bob. But it turns out that, well, everyone's been lying to Neto because suddenly he's being characterized as a blabbermouth? This being rooted from the fact that he was completely incapable of keeping himself secret as a net saver? When he never outed his identity himself? I will remind you all, keeping his status as a net saver secret from his friends was his idea! In order to keep them safe so they wouldn't rush in to help in a crisis where they could end up getting hurt. Not something he was instructed to do initially. Yes, it was a bad decision on his part, but it was from a point of deep responsibility. What we've seen throughout this arc and season is him being responsible with regards to all his NetSaver duties, including keeping his mouth shut even when he didn't have to. I seriously do not understand this. Why is it that half the writing staff have such an insipid and awful interpretation of Neto as a character? As I've said, Mayuri Sekijima is the worst about this, to the point he drags down every single member of the cast in his attempt to assert it. And whenever it pops up, it is always in stark contradiction to everything else we've seen. And it drags the show down so much. And it's not like their decoy plan helped them at all, considering they called in the grand mastermind of the scheme, meaning his friendly secret agent is going to track them anyways. Yeah, I get a virus every time I eat something that sticky too. Neto then proceeds to, out of nowhere, treat deleting them as a game, something he knows better than to do, while everyone else treats this as something serious. Anyways, Regal's brought to the converter, Yuichiro going over what they've been able to find out. Except Searchman did. That's how he disabled it. That allowed it to be shut down and salvaged while the internal system was left intact for analysis of its data instead of the entire thing burning out. Did Sekijima actually bother to learn what any of the other writers actually did, or did they just get cliff notes? Yuichiro thinks this energy core might somehow, inexplicably, lead them to the Darkloids, when that's not how that works at all. They need transmission data and security data, not information on its power core. Regal asks they log into the converter themselves to see if there's anything there they can use. Rockman installing Numbersoul to see if they can't analyze anything there for something hidden within. And Regal's cybernetic eye, allowing him to see and transmit the Scilab's firewall data that's hiding this secret lab from Yuriko, so she can just pass it along to the Darkloids. In specific, Sparkman, who has been promised the power of dark chips in cooperation. Except they already know dark chips are bad for them, and I wouldn't think Shademan would willingly infect more of his subordinates with them if he could help it. They've not exactly been getting a huge supply of them after all, for all of them to be hooked on them by this point, as otherwise they'd all be in advanced stages of degeneration already. Inside the system, Rockman's analysis finds something that interests Regal. Finding inside the leftover distortion of the converter's energy core that the episode now says that Searchman did destroy. God, was there no proofing of this fucking script? Well, there are the remnants of dead navies. And here's where we tie back to the beginning of the season with the assault on Net City, as this purported energy core control system is all powered by the computation abilities of abducted navies. From this, Regal figures out how to fix the converter, bringing it back online. Which would be nice if they can repurpose the tech so they can use dimensional areas whenever they want. Just wait until next season for that. But as they test reactivating it, well, Sparkman gets in the system, ready to use the converter to realize himself. And the navies trying to stop him have their own power drain to process the data the system needs to project its hard light holograms. As part of why Nebula's converters keep burning out, is the calculation process literally devours the navies trapped within them. How long it takes them to shut down, now tied to how quickly it uses up the navies it does. Which seems rather backwards. I mean, you could just use a standardized program to make all the calculations you need without having to co-op a lesser AI's program to do the same. Write a dedicated script and let it run on its own. It kind of seems like a needlessly cruel shortcut or stopgap, but at least one that makes sense for a villain to do with regards to Regal pulling an evil Rick. And when Yurichiro later finalizes his own version of the technology, he makes it so it doesn't have to run on torturing an endless amount of Mortys. And yeah, Blues and Rockman end up pretty badly drained by the point Sparkman gets realized, weakening Neto and Enzan's ability to fight when cross-fused, and leaving them at a heavy disadvantage. For with their physical capabilities not augmented as they should be, the two can't keep up with a fully realized Navi. Made worse when Sparkman uses one of his game abilities to make literal shadow clones of them that aren't as debilitated as them. While they manage to double-team them, it's once again the glory of Area Steel combined with the self-damage boosting powers of Blues and Enzan trusted Muramasa sword that finally turns the tide. It's odd that as much as I rag on Sekijima for being the cause of horrible character depiction in this show, that they're one of the few that actually tries to adapt actual game mechanics into their writing of battles for the series. Just in this fight, how they show the game mechanic manipulation of Custom Sword, and mentioning their HP dropping dangerously low which insanely boosts Muramasa, it makes sense and is a good application of them. Made better by how Muramasa becomes Chawd and Proto Man's signature weapon in the NT Warrior manga, where it even allows them to style change. But the need to hold the supercharged Muramasa back makes Sparkman put everything into that. So when Neto tries a sneak attack, it's only the Dark Lloyd's benefactor warning him that tips him off to the danger, and in turn use Enzan as a hostage. This ploy works, Neto unable to shoot, allowing Sparkman to counterattack and disable them both, leaving him free to destroy the Dimensional Area Converter's power core? We've discussed this before. Whatever the converters are realizing can't actually touch them due to them projecting the dimensional area outwards from themselves. And we've already seen the things are insanely sturdy, so they're not going to be taken offline from one hit. Kenichi Araki, the show's head writer, clarified this a couple episodes ago already, that it shouldn't work. Now, if he had attacked the equipment around it, which is made of real matter, and set off a chain reaction in the lab that caused the thing to be burned out, that is different. Or hell, crushing it under stuff that is made to fall from the ceiling. That works too. But the way the episode actually handles it is once more a contradiction to what we've seen before. And one that is wholly unnecessary, and reasserts what I've said about Sekijima really not being paid to give a damn to what the other staff writers are doing and have done with the construction of his own additions to the series. So yeah, this entire operation was a wash. The only thing learned is what I've said earlier. Net navies are literally drained to death to make these things work, for no other reason than to be cruel. And that's knowledge that doesn't really help them at all in the grand scheme, merely explaining why so many NetNavis the world over have been going missing. And it's all ultimately to plan by the bad guys, as the heroes of it haven't gained anything with this knowledge. And while Enzon suspects that Regal might have had a hand in things as he heard his voice call out to Sparkman, it's not like that's actual proof considering the other Nebula agent pulling doppelganger duty as it is, meaning his voice could have just been copied. The wrap-up. We have Totally Not Evil for the introduction of Dr. Evil, Regal. We have I'll Do It Myself for Dr. Regal being hands-on with regards to getting Scilab's hands off his dimensional area converters. We have writer neuroses for Sekijima and their problem with character depiction. Once more, in spite of my loathing of Sekijima's brand of flanderization, this is not necessarily a bad episode. There are some good Netto moments here with how, despite others' words, he does take his job seriously and understand its importance. And him wavering in attacks to not harm Enzon, who he does respect and considers a friend by this point, are good for his depiction. As is the plot about the Nebula forces working to destroy the generator show they're an actual threat and actively competent bad guys. But when put in context to everything that's happened in the series and the rules it's supposed to be operating under, that's where it gets trickier. I get why this might not have been caught back in the day. After all, marathoning episodes of TV shows like is often done now wouldn't exactly have been doable back then to be able to have every detail immediately on hand, at least until all the DVDs would have been released. So someone watching the series week to week wouldn't have caught the inconsistencies that hamper this story and this writer so much. But from a broader perspective, well, it's like I said, the Rockman anime is held back by these issues all along it. And it's really only when Sekijima's camp and the writing room are taken out of focus or mediated do the fuller merits of the series and its stronger long game arc with the villains really shine. With what's been built up from the previous episodes, it can't fully destroy that momentum, only highlight how huge that character inconsistency problem can be when they keep relying on it when they shouldn't.